All right. Welcome to another edition of Pitmaster, an Old Virginia Smoke podcast. My name is Luke Darnell. And as you can see, we have with us Mr. Darren Warth of Iowa Smoky D's. How's it going, buddy?
It's good.
I like your look.
Well, I thought maybe, you look cold, Luke. You said it was icing, so I figured I was in Florida. I'd give you the old sun hat and shade and whatever.
You look like Panama Jack's uncle.
Oh,
It's not bad. Have you been having any good seafood down there?
uh, every day, almost every
Yeah.
day. Oh man, the grouper cheap tacos last night were like unbelievable. I like tweak them every time. Every time I've been making them, I've been tweaking them and not just the tacos necessarily, not necessarily the grouper cheeks, but like the slaw that
Hmm.
goes under them. I've been playing around with them, and she hates mayonnaise. She hates mayonnaise, and I really can't do sour cream and whatever. And so it's like, oh, I'll find something different. Well, then I bought some slaw last night, and I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to mix a little ranch dressing with this to see
Ooh.
if I can wheel her in. So I took ranch dressing in it, and then I put hot sauce and some cumin and some salt and pepper in with it, and it was like really good. I couldn't taste any of the ranch at all. I'm like, well, Sherry, ranch dressing is really just mayo and spice. I know, but anyway, it turned out like really good. I wish I would have measured because it was like the perfect base. And then I talked her into letting me make some cilantro lime rice because she's a very plain eater. She just would have taken the low carb tortilla and putting the fish on top of it. But so we had black beans, and which I just ate. She doesn't like black beans, but and the cilantro lime rice, it was really good. But yeah, we've been knocking out seafood almost every single day. When in Rome, just
Absolutely.
oh, I just like, and it's cheaper. It's a lot cheaper to eat. I mean, even though it's expensive per pound, it doesn't really take a lot of seafood to fill you up.
Right. Plus, it's just so plentiful down there.
Yeah, the
It's
seafood market is, I mean, they know me on a first name basis now. I'm up there virtually every afternoon about 4 o'clock. What are we having today, Darren? Oh, what do you think? Let's have some grouper cheeks, or let's have some mahi or some snapper, or, a big old ahi steak, or, Sherry's become the Chilean sea bass is now her favorite. Of
Oh
course,
yeah.
at 38 bucks a pound it should be, but a 6 ounce fillet is enough. 6 ounce fillet is enough for both of us. So I mean, it's really economical, to tell you the truth, if you're making it at home. So
Right on. Right on. I would be getting the hogfish if I was down there.
yeah, we only saw the hogfish at the restaurant when we were down here a few weeks ago,
Oh, you
and
haven't seen it at the market?
I haven't seen it at the market at all.
Huh.
Yeah.
I wonder why. May not be in season. I don't know though. It seems like we found it down there this time of year before.
Yeah, it's supposed to be in season, but I have not seen it. So I mean, I could buy it frozen at the market, but I don't like to
Hmm.
buy. Eh,
Only when you have
um,
to.
yeah,
Yeah.
funny fish story, Luke. So I go to buy this. They had this big old fillet. It was probably a pound of Chilean sea bass left, and I told the gals, like, "What do you like?" And I said, "I just like about an inch and a quarter thick fillet of that. Just cut that piece in half." So she hands it to the rookie fish guy behind the counter and says, and hands him a knife and says, "Hey, can you cut this in half for him?" She was trying to make this oyster tray up. And so he comes back and he cuts it in half, and he cuts it into two blocks. And he goes, "Which one would you like?" And I looked at him with this disappointing look, and she turned around and went, "Oh, James. Oh, James." And she put it back in, and she went back to the back and brought out this brand new huge fillet of Chilean sea bass and cut me a fillet off herself. It was just he's like, just cut it in half. Just cut it in half. Just a training moment. My heart just sank when he just like cut it into two cubes.
Somebody ate well that night though.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I almost took it and just made some small steaks, but I didn't.
Yeah. Well, you gotta teach people. Who else is going to teach people, right?
Yep.
Well, we recently got to spend some time together in Kansas City at the KCBS awards banquet. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was fun. It was hadn't been there in years, and it was a lot of fun. I'm glad I went.
Probably one of my favorite moments, though, was Saturday morning breakfast. That was a great time.
I
Uh,
cannot I cannot believe you guys first showed up for breakfast time after what condition you were in on Friday night at 12:30 or whatever when I left you. Yeah, I was like, there's no way these guys are going to show up at 6 o'clock in the morning. There is no way these guys are showing up for breakfast at 6 o'clock in the morning. And by God, you and Joe surprised me. You were both there. I could not
both
believe it.
there.
I was shocked.
So then yeah. So yes, that was shocking even for me that we were there. But then we had the dilemma about where to go for breakfast, and there was a place that we've been before, the Dagwood. Is that what it's called? I think,
Yeah, the
or just
Dagwood Cafe. Yep, the
the
Dagwood Cafe.
Dagwood, where they
Yep.
have this really good breakfast. It's just an old diner in Kansas City. It's really good. And then the other place is called the City Grill,
Yeah, I believe so. Yep. City Grill. Yep.
and we couldn't decide where to go, so we went to the Dagwood and had a great breakfast, and then we went for second breakfast.
Why not?
Why not? So we went to the other place, the City Grill, City whatever it's called. It was we were recommended that place. Um, the people watching was better at the second place, but the food was way worse, in my opinion.
Horrible.
Yeah,
Horrible. I would borderline it wasn't even borderline horrible. It was just horrible.
yeah, it was
I mean,
disappointing at best.
yeah, they could have served us like Pop Tarts and refrigerator biscuits, and I would have been happier.
I agree.
It it was just crazy. It was just I cannot believe how a place that iconic that's been around since the 40s and 50s could
Right.
serve that horrible of food.
Well, and then when we told people we went there, they were like, "Oh wow, what'd you think? It was great, wasn't it?" No, it was it was really bad, and people seemed shocked that it was bad. But it's just I don't
Yeah,
know. And as we all know, breakfast is your jam, so it was
it's my
kind of hard
jam.
to
Yeah.
yeah, it was hard to reconcile that. The Dagwood was good.
Yeah, the
It's
Dagwood was
reliable.
it was solid. It's always, and Megan Day, when I was talking to her later that night, she was telling me about what happened with a lot of those old breakfast spots that during COVID they couldn't get their supplies, from
Mm,
their normal purveyors, their normal biscuits or whatever they did. So they started going to Restaurant Depot. And they found that Restaurant Depot was a lot cheaper to go to than their normal suppliers. And they just stayed with Restaurant Depot. And I'm like, they just ruined it. I mean, I see how hard we work, and it's my jam to make stuff made from scratch. I mean, it's just a lot of work. I mean, we could make our life so much easier if we just bought biscuits at Sam's Club and served them, and if we just
sure.
bought gravy out of and sausage, if we just bought it instead of making our own, it would save us so much time and so much effort. And we wouldn't have to have people there an hour early every day to make that stuff. We could walk in literally and turn on the grills and go to work. But that's just not the way I want to do things. And so all this stuff that we make from scratch, and then you go to this place that you expect does it the old school way, and everything is out of a can, and these biscuits are like 5-day old out of the Restaurant Depot. I'm like, at least put it on the grill and toast it or something. Oh no, it was right out of the package. I mean,
Right out of the package.
it was just so disappointing. I'm surprised the eggs weren't egg patties.
Me too.
Actually, I'm surprised they weren't egg patties.
And one of my key metrics when measuring a breakfast place is, do they even have corned beef hash? Is the number one metric,
Yeah,
and that place did not,
yeah,
and it
no,
was
yeah.
it's unacceptable to me.
Because you gotta have a corn, whatever you have, you gotta have a corned beef hash kicker.
Always, like that's
Yeah.
especially when you've had maybe a little too much the night before. Corned beef hash kind of sets your mood right for the rest of the day. So, well, that was a fun day though. I went to all the educational sessions after breakfast, um, just to see what was going on in the world of KCBS. But then I actually got to host one, um, the Hall of Fame roundtable discussion, which sounds innocent enough until you realize there were 17, 18 people there to be a part of a roundtable discussion. Uh, yeah, at first, I was a little worried that it was just going to be too much and too many personalities, but it actually worked out quite well, I thought.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun because there was a mix of, just old school guys that we haven't seen forever, like QOw and, Butcher, we see a little bit of, but I mean, just people that you haven't seen for a long time. And I think their true personalities came out. And there was also people there that I didn't know a lot about.
Hmm.
And, I hadn't really spent a lot of time, that down in the southeast part of the United States, that I hadn't spent a lot of time cooking around. I really don't know them. I know of them, but I
Hmm.
don't know them in depth personally. And so I think that's what the banquet did this time was I learned a lot about them just from the Hall of Fame experience, whether it was their speech on stage or through that round table. It just made a lot of sense, you know.
Yeah,
It all
and
came together.
I've always said that the banquet is a great place to meet people from all over the country and really just develop, network, and meet new friends. It's always been that for us. And but hosting that thing and being able to lead that discussion was really a big deal to me just because I don't know if that many people in that level of expertise in our hobby slash industry slash the business acumen that was on stage. I don't know that all of that has ever been on one stage together like that.
Yeah, come together. Probably not. I mean, just in that whole KCBS realm from a competition standpoint, no.
Yeah. I mean, and when you look at the businesses, when you just walk down the line, the businesses that a lot of the people there had created from competition barbecue, it really was something to witness and be a part of.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. But there were two things that came up in that I really wanted to have you on here to talk about in terms of because I think I had several people made comments to me afterwards, like I had no idea that that's where those things came from, and that was the two discussions. We'll start with the first one, and that is the origination of the term shigging. And I really think I think it's so important. I thought that whole thing was so important that I thought we needed to do a podcast on these two questions. With the first one being, where did the term shigging come from? I thought this was just a super piece of, and we've all been doing this for a long time, and you hear tons of stories, and people take credit for a lot of shit and stuff like that. But the detail, I think this is something that just needs to be shared on a wider net.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Shiggin started, and I'm trying to figure out the year. I'm guessing it's somewhere in the 2007, 2008 timeframe. Okay. So we're in Madison, Indiana, which was the Riverfest was a well known contest that we used to go to every year. And we were down and we were clear at the end. So we had the organizer put us clear at the end of this contest. And once again, like every contest, it was Asshole Alley, right? So it was normally Twyford and us, and Scotty Johnson was there. And we had the boys from Shigs and Pitt out of Fort Wayne, Indiana. Um, and old Podge, who won the Jack Daniels back in, I don't know what year it was, 2000, whatever. Old Podge, old Dave, who's no longer with us. just a bunch of old time cooks, both from the Midwest and from Indiana, Ohio. And every year we'd converge on Asshole Alley, and we'd start showing up on Wednesday. It started to be Thursday, and then we'd show up on Wednesday, and we'd just have a ball, right? And so here we are, and it's one Friday, and we're sitting, and we would congregate outside Twyford's trailer. So Twyford was cooking under the team Ulcer Acres at that point. And we're sitting out and everybody's kind of prepping, but we're just kind of hanging out. And old Stefan, who we used to call Fabio, because he had really long hair from Shigs and Pitt, he comes in and he goes, "Hey, Randy, can I borrow this?" I can't remember what he was borrowing. And Randy's like, "Oh, yeah, just go up in the front of the trailer. It's in a cabinet up above." And so pretty soon Stefan comes, he's up there wrestling around in the front of the trailer. Pretty soon he walks out with a bottle of Grandma Foster's barbecue sauce. Now, back then, Grandma Foster's was kind of one of our secret weapons with Randy and I and some of the old school guys. Grandma Foster's wasn't a well-known labeled sauce. And this is back when Bill Arnold was just kind of starting Blues Hog and distributing out of his truck. Mm-hmm. Okay, so think Blues Hog wasn't the norm on the barbecue circuit at that point. And so Grandma Foster's was just a really good all-around sauce. And so here comes Stefan out of the back of the truck and says, or out of the trailer, and goes, "Hey, Randy, what's this?" He goes, and Randy had stored this sauce underneath. It was in a box underneath the dinette of his thing, where you couldn't see. You had to go searching for this underneath the dinette in the front of his trailer. And Randy spouted off and he goes, "What the hell are you doing, Stefan? You fucking shigger." and Shigging was born. And so we sat around that night and said, "Wow, we need to come up with a definition for Shigging." And it was Shigging without a G at that point.
Right.
Okay, because, but Shigging, so we came up, so we wrote down, and I went home after that contest, and I wrote down a definition of Shigging. And I said, "Randy, we need to get a cup made." He goes, "Okay, let's get a cup made." So, which means, Darren, you get the cup made, because that's the way it works in Randy's world. So I went and got these big, 32-ounce plastic cup mades with the definition of Shigging made. And so at the bottom, it says, courtesy of Smack Talk Barbecue, which was Randy and I's team name. When we used to compete together, we were Smack Talk Barbecue, and the Midwest Barbecue Mafia, which would have been, Randy and I and Grandpa Cheese and Alex from Dr. Porkenstein and Scotty Johnson. We used to call ourselves the Midwest Barbecue Mafia. And we've got pictures walking down the aisle, and people just used to hate us, right? Because chances are at Madison, Indiana, one of us was going to win that contest. So we just kind of rub it in, and, we did all kinds of funny things. But I went home, created this cup, and came up with the Shigging cup. So I ordered 500 of them. I only ever ordered them once. I still have some of the originals. My mom once put one on eBay to see how much it would sell for. I think it sold for like $18. Because I didn't know how to use eBay, but I still have some of the original cups in existence, and then it kind of took off. It was just Shigging, right? It was Shigging. It was the secret. The definition was really going into somebody's site, trying to figure out their barbecue secrets, and it was a 3 or 4 definition thing. So Shigging was born that day. It wasn't born before that, because Shigs and Pit came, it was just a play on pigs and shit, pigs and shit, Shigs and Pit. That was their play of their competition team name, which is now their very successful barbecue restaurant in Fort Wayne.
Nice.
We call it Smokey D's East between us, because we spend so much time together, and they've spent so much time at our place, and we've actually sent employees out there to kind of train. So we do a lot of mutual things together, and we brainstorm ideas and collaborate on a lot of stuff. And so we have a really great relationship. But yeah, Shigging was born in Madison, Indiana, way back when.
That's amazing. That's an amazing story, and I can see Randy getting a little heated and somebody coming out of there with the secret sauce.
Oh, and just plain as day. And if you knew Stefan was always up to no good. And he's like, Stefan, you fucking sugar. I just hear it. I can hear it just plain as day. And there Shigging was born.
That was a great story. And the whole room at that point was just like staring, like, oh my gosh, like that's where that came from. But not even to outdo yourself, then it came up the 922 shot.
Yeah.
Which I had heard this story before, and it's one of my favorites. And actually, I needed to hear it again because I've had to tell it several times when I've heard people try and take credit for that. And I'm like, you're incorrect. But it had been a while since I've heard it. But again, during the Hall of Fame roundtable at the KCBS banquet, like the whole room just kind of stopped what it was doing. It was like, we need to listen to this. It was fantastic.
We've always thrusted the way. We've always thrusted
Right.
we've always been the innovators of new ideas, right?
Yeah. Well, why is it at 922? The people want to
Well,
know.
so the 922 shot. So in the early days, 2003, 2004, when we were around the Kansas City area, Phil Hopkins from Smoking Guns and Phil Morrow and a bunch of the old timers, they always had an 11 o'clock shot of Jack Daniels. And so as newcomers, they always invited us. And Phil was an early mentor of ours. Okay, he not only a mentor in the barbecue competition barbecue, he was very much a mentor of mine in the restaurant business. So we'd go over for the 11 o'clock shot. Well, here we are. We're pretty much young kids at that point. Well, maybe we're not so young, but we're young kids. And so us smartasses decided, hey, we should probably do an 8 o'clock shot in the morning to get ready for the 11 o'clock shot. Right. So not only would we go to the 11 o'clock shot, we started doing an 8 o'clock shot. And then we found out that this 11 o'clock shot always got in the way, and we could only make it part of the time because we're always dealing with chicken, and something's always going on at 11 o'clock. So we started brainstorming, like, we got to figure out a different time to have this shot. And so as I'm looking through going, when can we have this shot? You start thinking about, and I'm kind of always a guy that, Stephen Covey, begin with the end in mind, right? So you start thinking about timelines and you start thinking about how people do things. And most people's timelines depend on doing stuff every 15 minutes or every half hour. Well, nobody's doing shit at 922. Right. And it's kind of halfway in between 8 o'clock and 11 o'clock. So we kind of split the difference. And then we found a time that worked at 922 that was kind of a calm time. That was really that time that, the ribs are on, they don't need wrapped yet. They're, we're ready to wrap ribs. The chicken isn't on yet. So there's this time that, it's kind of that peaceful time in the morning where nothing's happening, that people have time to do it. So we created the 922 shot. Well, then it took on a whole new life because then Randy, he sent off and got ordained as a minister from the Universal Life Church of Modesto, California. So in the Midwest, when we did the 922 shot, it was a big thing. I mean, every competitor was at the 922 shot, and he would have this sermon planned. And it would start off with the powers invested by me, by the Universal Life Church of, and the whole crowd would go, Modesto, California. And he would talk about the great state of Illinois, and he would talk about Rod Blagojevich, who's now in prison, and da-da-da-da-da. I mean, he would just on and on and on, and he would just go on with this sermon. I mean, you can go onto YouTube and put in 922 shot, and you'll see some of those old 922 shots that Randy did where he'll stand up on the podium and just, I mean, it's just amazing. But yeah, that's where the 922 shot, it took on a whole life of its own. just based upon, and all we were trying to do was trying to find a time that we could mix an 8 o'clock or 11 o'clock shot. Because the problem was we were starting to get drunk. And then
Right.
we're like, okay, let's try and figure out a time to have a shot that everybody can participate, that we could spend 5 or 10 minutes instead of, hey, let's just come over and do a shot. And then after 9/11, then I think the guys kind of on the West Coast started doing the, the the 9/11 shot, and then a lot of people do the 707 Lucky Beer, and then old
Yeah.
Gil Taft out of Illinois, he always did the 10 o'clock Lucky Beer, so went through that, all that, and so there was. I mean, realistically, if you have the old timers at a contest, you could pretty much drink every 15 minutes if you wanted to. So for a while, we were just sending Sherry around to all these. She come back just toasted off her ass. Because you couldn't dare go to all of them yourself. First, you wouldn't be cooking. And second of all, you'd be wasted by the time you got to turn-ins.
Right. Yeah, I've had to limit myself to one of those things. Generally, I can make the 922. Sometimes I just choose not to. But yeah,
Yeah, I don't do
but
much
that's
of
it.
them I don't do much of them anymore. But another thing to add to the 922. So, we started out. We used to be the Smoking Clones for years up until 2007 when we opened the first restaurant. We thought, well, we better not be the Smoking Cyclones because we need to feed Hawkeye fans too. That's when we switched over to Smokey D's. And so before that, we were at a contest. I think it was in Dubuque, Iowa. It was a contest before Dubuque, but we were talking about getting secrets from QOw. And QOw and Scotty Johnson were always trying to get secrets back and forth. And Scotty's kids would always go over to QOw's trailer and try and figure out what was going on and try and figure out. They'd shig him before Shigging was even born. And they would try and figure out secrets. And it came up with it. They give him a bomb pop. And he's like, Q, I was like, man, give me a bomb pop. I'll tell you whatever you want to know. Right. And so they take over a bomb pop to QOw because he loved bomb pops. And he'd take over a bomb pop and he'd tell him all kinds of secrets. Right. Well, then Scotty took it one step further. So when we started the 922, Scotty started the clone sickle. So in Dubuque, Iowa, he shows up and he took the old bottle of Gentleman Jack, which was an octagonal bottle, right? Mm-hmm. And he took one of them big things of pretzels that you buy like at Menards or wherever, a big plastic container, and he cut it off and he put the bottle of Gentleman Jack in it and filled it full of water up to the neck and froze it, right?
Uh-huh.
And then we put he'd put it in the freezer, and then we'd show up at the contest with the clone sickle. So we didn't used to pour it out into cups. We used to pass the clone sickle from person to person and drink this shot. And so we have the clone sickle. I actually have a picture of the first clone sickle ever.
Wow.
On my phone that I'll send to you, Luke. It's just crazy that, but yeah, I'm like, well, you want to tell me secrets, and I'm a whiskey guy, used to be anyway. And I'm like, you want to, tell me secrets, it's going to take more than a bomb pop, so that's when Scotty came up with the clone sickle. He goes, I'll get your secrets. So just lots of history, lots of fun. Nobody was back then. I don't think anybody was really serious about anything. We were just cooking. It was more about fun. It wasn't about team of the year. It wasn't about points. It wasn't about anything. There was no classes. It just was.
Yeah.
It was about getting together in parking lots and fairgrounds and just cooking. And guess what? Somebody was going to win and somebody was going to lose. And when they lost, who cares? And when they won, you celebrated them. And when you won, they celebrated you.
Yep. I remember also my first Murfreesboro, the gin bucket.
Oh.
Ugh. So that's a drink
Yeah.
that my wife makes. It's called a gin bucket, but she mixes everything together and poured it in a glass. So you guys said gin buckets, and I'm like, okay, I know what those are. Well, no, I did not. This is literally a bucket.
Yeah. You have to go buy a bucket. I mean, we go to the farm store and buy a galvanized bucket. and it literally is lemonade and limeade and powdered lemonade and the cheapest bottle of gin that you could find. And we really only do a gin bucket in Murfreesboro, and
At awards.
you take it to awards and you fill it full of ice and you walk around and people just drink out of the bucket, and I mean the best year ever is when we found a bucket that was a feeding bucket for a dairy farm that had the udder on it. So,
Oh God.
oh yeah, yeah, that was so we were walking around and the girls were like, "What's that?" And I'm like, "Oh, it's an udder. Have a shot of gin." So, yeah, my wife used to get so plastered on gin buckets. I'm like, "Oh, I don't even know you." She was famous for taking the lime out of the gin bucket, putting it in her mouth and going over and pretending like she was French kissing. She did that to Mark Lambert a couple times, and and his wife was sitting right there, and she goes, "Is this okay?" And she goes, "I don't care what you do to him."
Oh my God, I'll never forget that. And we were all schnockered by the end of that award
Oh,
ceremony. It was
yeah, yeah.
a good time. Well,
Lots
thank
of
you for the
times.
history lesson, Professor Darren. I really appreciate it.
History lesson. Yeah, it's all about making history. So, since we can't score in barbecue, we might as well talk about history, right?
Well, you're going to cook this weekend, right?
Yeah, if my brisket shows up, I'm hoping my brisket shows up. I wasn't going to cook this weekend. I was going to cook next weekend, and next weekend I'm not sure they only had like 10 teams, and so I'm not even sure it's going to go. I go, Sherry, let's switch to this weekend. So, and if they get enough teams, then we'll go next. Or I'm going to go next weekend too. So we last minute sent some briskets down, and they're supposed to be here, but they're not here yet. So I'm going to have to figure out a way
This
to
weekend's Davenport.
Davenport. Yeah.
That's the one we did last year, yeah?
No, we did
No,
Haines City.
we did Haines City last year. Davenport I did do last year, but you weren't there.
Yeah, I looked at the
Your pit,
I looked and saw your scores at the Davenport contest last year. They didn't like you very much at Davenport last year.
they did not. Uh, but I did use your pit at that contest.
Yeah, yeah, you did.
Yeah. And no, they did not enjoy us. We had, I think we might have gotten one call, maybe two low calls, but then got killed in the other two. So
Yeah, yeah. So I don't know. I may shake things up, but I don't know. I haven't started. I haven't even looked at my barbecue stuff for the last year. Is sitting in the garage, and here we are Thursday at noon, and I haven't started a thing. And I'm leaving tomorrow morning, like 6 a.m. So I don't know. Do I go lay by the pool and worry about it some other day, or do I don't know. Depends. I mean, how do you thaw a 20 plus pound Snake River Farms? It's probably going to sit out on the counter all night long. I don't know.
I've done that before. That it does all right. It's fine.
Yeah, it's fine. Or I'll just cook it frozen. I don't know. Cook it. I'll cook it for a while and then trim it. I don't know. It's just barbecue, right?
It's just make sure it's tender and tastes good. Tastes
That's right.
decent. That's all you
I
got to
don't.
do.
I don't have taste buds anyway, so I can't tell you if it tastes good or not. So
Is Mama going with you?
yeah, yeah, she's going. Well, maybe. I don't know. She's laying. I'm seeing out. She's laying in the pool right now. So once she gets a dose of that, she may go. Yeah, just go by yourself.
They do have fantastic drinks at that contest. I can tell you that.
Well, I don't drink anymore, Luke. So
I
that's
know, but
not
I was
really
really
not going
saying
to do me good.
I was really saying that for Sherry.
Oh, okay.
She'll be entertained. So, all right, man. Well, thanks for being on. I appreciate it.
Okay.
Good luck this
Sounds
weekend.
good. Good luck with the ice storm and the snow and everything else. And we're going to
Uh,
try. Oh my God. There goes a cloud. Oh, it's gone.
uh, cancel, cancel the day. Clouds. All
Clouds.
right, man. Good luck.
Okay. Thank you.